Day 79, I'm reading If God is Love, page 96. Oh, no, page 98. Once we were saved, our primary task was to save others. As teens, we were trained to share the four spiritual laws, the religious equivalent of Heimlich maneuver. We were told that if followed sincerely, this formula could save a person instantly. We were taught exponential evangelism. If I saved two persons, they each saved two persons. And then they each saved two persons. The whole world would be saved in 3 years. You can imagine my dismay when I labored to save two people, and 3 years later the world wasn't converted to Christianity. Some had obviously fallen down on the job. Saving others was the chief purpose of life. I remember how, during the final worship service at camp, teenager after teenager would stand to proclaim their new commitment to God. The boys would talk of becoming preachers. The girls would pledge to become pastors' wives or missionaries. If I was acceptable for a woman to preach to African and Asian men, I never remember anyone's promising to become a gracious banker, police officer, doctor, or lawyer. Working to make the world a more gracious place wasn't a priority in the churches of my childhood. Some of this negligence was a result of apocalyptic interpretations in which the world was doomed and damned anyway. One man insisted we shouldn't work for peace in the Middle East because we were simply postponing Armageddon and the return of Christ. However, the primary reason the church didn't have time to save the world, change the world, was because we'd expended so much energy trying to save souls. We'd work for weeks in revivals, evangelism programs, mission support, and the like. We didn't have time for soup kitchens, visiting prisoners, or working with the homeless, unless, of course, we could figure out a way to work in an altar call. When I became convinced of God's intention to save every person, my perspective on the purpose of life changed. Salvation became as a lifelong adventure in which God is gently and patiently drawing us away from self-absorption and toward authentic relationship with God and one another. The point of life was no longer to get saved or to save others. The purpose of life was to live graciously. Freed from personal anxiety about God's acceptance and no longer obsessed with creating others in my own image, I was able to focus on what it means to be rather than do. I remember what my father said when, in the months before college, I asked him what I should do with my life. He answered, "I'm not so worried about what you do with your life. My concern is the kind of person you'll be." At the time, I thought his response less than helpful. It took many years to appreciate the wisdom of his counsel. Our vocation matters, but what is far more important is the person we are in our work. Religious vocations aren't confined to churches, synagogues, or mosques. Indeed, those working in what we call secular occupation are often in the best position to minister to troubled minds and hungry hearts. When I was a Little League coach, I had far more opportunities to serve others than when sitting in my church office. No one need become a pastor, priest, nun, or monk in order to dedicate one's life to God. What the world needs is people being gracious wherever they work. Saving souls isn't about altar calls, but about responding graciously to those we encounter in our daily lives. Being gracious is not about inviting others to church, but about living an inviting life. one both attractive and wisdom. The purpose of life isn't to create more Christians, but to let our lights shine before the others, so they will see our God, our good works, and give glory to our Father in heaven. Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. Having said all of that, there are occupations we should probably abandon. Work that inherently diminishes our worth of or the worth of others should be avoided. I encouraged the woman in our church who was dancing in a club to seek other employment. I've also asked people employed in manufacturing bombs and tanks to reconsider their vocation. I did this gently, aware of the economic realities that often place people in such position, and conscious of how my education and affluence make such ethical distinctions easier for me. It is difficult, in an ungracious world, for many to find a place where doing and being can unite. I should stop here. Please correct me if you can.